Hey there everyone, this is Noah and this is my first video in Kerbal Space Program .22. So I decided to do a career mode, and the three Kerbalnauts that you see here that took this lunar base to the surface of the Mun decided that they don't want to stick around and they want to come home. So I have to start a rescue mission. Unfortunately, being in career mode, I'm only limited to certain parts I can use right now. So unfortunately I had to use a few mods to make this mission successful to get these Kerbalnauts off the surface and return them home safely to their families. So seeing as these Kerbalnauts are quite picky and they want to come home, little do they know that at the taxpayer's expense, a lot of testing had to be involved into securing a successful mission to return them safely home. And like I said, I had to go through quite a few ships and a lot of testing to see which craft I like best, but unfortunately it turned out that I needed to use mods. The ship exploded. I had about 3 or 4 different designs that just kept exploding or were completely uncontrollable. Um, yeah, I still, if you notice, 3 single person capsules up top. That's the design that I still used. And at this point, I just could not control this craft at all, so I had to throw that one out. But fortunately, the landing stage was quite successful. If I make enough of these videos, you'll soon realize that I just tend to wing things. There's certain YouTubers such as Scott Manley and HOC Gaming that they're highly intelligent when it comes down to the mathematical part of building these rockets, and I learn a lot from them. But for me, it's just all about trial and error. For example, this ship right here that's flying into orbit, I thought that this one was the winner, but I actually soon ran out of fuel, and I knew I wouldn't have enough Delta V to get a lunar insertion, let alone get securely into orbit. But this ship right here was the winner, and if you notice that my solid rocket boosters are um, Nova Punchback, so they gave me way more than enough Delta V, but I unlocked them in career mode, which is kind of a cool feature. I don't know if that was intentional, but if you notice, I ditched my Kerbal that was in this rocket because I'm going to need room for 3 on the return home. But notice I'll start doing my gravity turn just a little bit early because I'm already going to have way more than enough Delta V, so there's no point in shooting straight up and getting really high orbit. So this way I can get as much Delta V as I can, so then I won't need as much when I need to make a lunar insertion. Already getting really red hot from tearing through the atmosphere. Part of me really wanted to use cheats for this mission, but I figured no, it, it's not so simple. You can't do that in real life, so try to make it as realistic as I can. And you notice that on the side there I have MechJeb, but let's just be honest, there's computer landing systems in rockets nowadays, I'm sure of it. But just circularizing my orbit. If I would have timed it right, I could have just made a lunar insertion right off the bat, but for me, I like to secure myself in orbit first. That way it gives me a little bit of time to think about what my next step is, especially when there's 3 lives on the line, and I'm sure that they're running out of water and food, so we have to make a hasty attempt to grab them as soon as we can. I remember when I started playing Kerbal Space Program, everything was in code visually in front of my face, meaning I didn't know what was going on. It seemed like my first week of playing Kerbal Space Program, I don't even think I really made it too much out of the atmosphere or into orbit. I just kept blowing up and making cool featureless designs that, looking back at it now and thinking how I played, it's quite embarrassing, but we all got to start somewhere. Needless to say, I was playing a lot of first-person shooters before I stumbled across Kerbal Space Program, but I do believe I was searching up something along the lines of the speed of light, and I came across Scott Manley's video on how to actually reach speed of light in Kerbal Space Program. And if I remember correctly, he said it would 22 days he would have to let his computer run to reach the speed of light. And I'm sure he's a busy man; he's got a lot of stuff to do, so he did not have time for that. But I would have liked to have seen it. But he was already at the edge of the solar system towards the end of the video, so I don't know if the boundaries of KSP's solar system is limitless or not, but now we're just making a orbit around the planet right now, so we could burn right at the right moment. It's right when the Mun comes over the horizon, so that is the proper time to get a lunar insertion. Once again, reverting back to my earlier days of playing this game, getting to the Mun, that was a huge ordeal for me because I wasn't familiar with maneuver nodes. Now I started playing during version 0.19, but I think my first successful lunar insertion was doing it manually, just like this, without even using a maneuver node, and it seemed to work really well. I still do that now to this day. As you can see, I'm trying to get my periaps as low as I can. I don't like to insert into a lunar insertion as like 200, 300,000 meter periaps. I like to get really low to the lunar surface. That way, by the time I have to make a retrograde burn to land, I don't have to burn as much fuel. But then once again, I might get critique because I don't know if I'm saving fuel or not saving fuel. I'm not up to par like with the mathematics behind all this. I know how to save fuel. I know what to use as in what parts to use, but as for the actual mathematics behind it, I'm still not too familiar, and I'm sure I'll catch on eventually. But here I'm hitting the Mun periaps and just burning retrograde to bring my apoapsis down to kind of highly eccentric orbit. Now you'll see that I'm going to use MechJeb landing. I can land on the Mun manually, it's no problem, but trying to land precisely, I have quite a bit of problem with that because the planet rotates under your craft, and manually I don't know how to overcompensate or compensate to land right where I need to land. So I'll admit I'll use MechJeb. We're closing in on our target, just hitting a couple kilometers away from it, and I believe I land about 600 meters. That's about as close as I could get, but that's within walking distance, and the Kerbalnauts have their jetpacks anyway, loaded with RCS fuel, so it'd be a hop and a skip to come over here to their escape vehicle home. See our shadow and touchdown. Right now, kind of on a little bit of a slope, but those three landing legs are pretty sturdy and not too top heavy. It's pretty balanced out. So now switching over to this other craft, and this is my lunar base, the start of it. But like I said, these three Kerbalnauts, they don't want to stick around, so they're gonna take the next ship home, which is this one, just with my RCS fuel and my jetpack. Just gonna hop on over and load each Kerbal up individually. There was a point during um, bringing all the Kerbals over to the escape craft that by the time I got my third Kerbal over there, he crashed into the ground and went under the lunar surface, and it completely crashed the game out. So I actually had to load the quick save when I got back into the game and land all over again. So you'll notice by the time the third Kerbal gets over there, the craft is actually a lot closer than is seen right now. But that was something completely out of my control. So there's still no cheating involved. and he takes a nasty little tumble, but he's quick to recover. He wants to get home. Not even the lack of gravity is going to stop him at this point. So, just loading up my last Kerbal, I believe. getting getting in was quite a task because the pods are situated in a weird fashion where you go up too high in your CS, you hit a pod. You don't go up high enough, you'll slip right back down, and then you have to use your RCS to get back up again. All right, taking off, and I'm gonna make a heading of 90 degrees so I can get in a pretty steady elliptical orbit. But I am not going to uh, get into a full orbit. I'm just going to reach a high apoapsis and make a maneuver to go home. Notice I'm making an orbital insertion the other way. Would you want to say west? Because Kerbal is right there. It'll be right over the horizon, and I know for sure I can make um, a Kerbal insertion. Now, if I were to go the other way around, I'd have to probably get into a full circular orbit first. Now, I might be wrong. I don't know. That's probably one of those things I'll get corrected on and get a lot of comments about it, but I'm totally prepared for it. So we are on the way home. Forgot to put up my landing gears. Now, I think in a real time scenario as big as this craft is, I think coming into the atmosphere would surely mess up this craft. It would burn up. I'm sure parts would fly off, but until such a time where Squad incorporates something like Deadly Reentry mod into the game, I don't have to worry about it. So we're kind of hacking the universe, so to speak. Burning up, burning up, burning up. And surprisingly, the craft is intact. I thought something would have at least flown off, but usually when I make my re-entries, it's just a capsule with a couple parachutes, not an entire lander craft like this. Generally, I keep these in space or on a planet somewhere. Parachutes deploy. We're coming down at a few meters per second, which is great. I could have been cool and tried to aim for the Kerbal Space Center, but and we have done it. These Kerbals can now go home to their families and quit complaining. They could have just toughed it out on the moon, but they wanted to come home. Thank you everyone for watching my first video. I hope I didn't bore you too much. Until next time.